Okay, let's start off with the Families Gang, also known as Franklin and Lamar's gang in GTA 5. This gang mainly operates out of parts of Strawberry, the Chamberlain Hills and also a little bit of Davis, and all of these are located in the south of Los Santos. The members in the Families Gang are of African American ethnicity, and if you've played GTA 5 then you probably already know that their main colour is green. But unlike the Ballas gang, they're a lot more divided, especially in story mode where Franklin's obviously trying to separate himself from the gang, and ultimately that way of life. And speaking of which, there are clearly similarities between the families in GTA 5 and also the Grove Street families from GTA San Andreas, with CJ and Franklin sort of being the main figures in their respective gangs. And on top of that, in both games, the families both have a massive rivalry with the Ballas. It's also known that the families were quite a prestigious gang in the lead up to GTA 5, and it's rumoured that they used to have a strong foothold in the drug trade. However, during the events of GTA 5 story mode, it appears they've lost a lot of ground and respect, and that's something that Lamar is constantly upset about. And to my knowledge, we don't have much more interaction with the families during GTA 5 story mode, but compare this to GTA Online and they were actually featured a bit more during the Benny's update in 2020. With this update, we obviously had the main addition of the lowriders, one of which was the Classy Voodoo Custom, which you could actually customize to make fully green, allowing you to fit in with the family's gang if you really wanted to. On top of that, the update also brought new missions with Lamar. Some of these missions you've likely played before, such as Community Outreach, Desperate Times, and also the Mission Peace Offerings. And in all honesty, most of these just involve drive-bys and shootouts in the name of the family's gang. But leading on from that, let's talk about one that I've hinted at enough already. The Ballas, as briefly mentioned, are the longest standing rival of the families, and they also occupy the south regions of Los Santos. In GTA 5 they obviously rep the colour purple, and they're a street gang that obviously have strong ties into the drug world. In the main story of GTA 5 you run into one of the Ballas members early on, in one of the best missions in my opinion, which goes by the name of Chop. In this mission, Franklin and Lamar are tasked with chasing one of the Ballas members through the back alleys, and if I remember correctly, I believe this mission finishes up on the train tracks, with the most memorable part obviously being your ability to play as Chop, and it ends with you taking down the Ballas gang member. And overall this brings the unique mission to a close. And leading on from that, in contrast to this one situation, the Ballas members are usually a lot more organised and well connected as opposed to the families, and they are more specifically found around the areas of Davis and Rancho, as well as them often being spotted near Jamestown Street and also the BJ Smith Recreation Centre, where you might have seen them flying their purple banners, as well as lots of graffiti related to their gang. In addition to this, with GTA Online, the Ballas members actually appear quite frequently. They are usually the enemies protecting the goods during free roam events, and they are also present in some of the contact missions, as well as being on the receiving end of some of the Lamar missions as I mentioned earlier. In one of these specifically, you have to storm one of the Ballas' hideout to instigate a full-on gang war. But just before we move on, let's brief quickly on the history. As you may know already, there are a lot of different gangs in GTA San Andreas, with the Ballas actually included in this, and they were actually responsible for the death of CJ's mum, who was indirectly a part of the Grove Street families. And if you have a minute, take a trip to Grove Street in GTA 5, because you will see it's still an extremely hostile area, almost like a subtle reminder back to San Andreas. Next up now, let's talk about the Vagos. The Los Santos Vagos are a Mexican-American gang rooted around the northeast parts of Los Santos, especially in the areas around La Mesa and Rancho. They're pretty hard to miss because they're in bright yellow and a lot of them have face tattoos. And on top of that, similar to the others, they're also involved massively in drug trafficking, as well as being featured a hefty amount across the GTA world. For instance, the Vagos are the main enemies in some of the survival missions in GTA Online, and they also feature quite a lot during the Gerald Contact missions in relation to the meth businesses. But your first main encounter with the gang is during GTA 5 story mode during the mission called Repossession, where I'm pretty sure Simeon sends Franklin and Lamar to repossess a bike at Vespucci Beach, but it just sort of ends up resulting in an ambush from the Vagos members and you've got to shoot your way out. But leading on from that, back in GTA San Andreas, the Vagos were actually loosely associated with the Purple Ballas gang from earlier, and while that's never really been brought back in GTA 5, it seems the two groups try not to get into each other's way, especially later on in the GTA 5 story, where the gang's control actually seems to expand north towards the areas of Mirror Park and actually East Vinewood as well. But moving on now, let's talk about the Aztecas, which are an interesting gang and they actually play a pretty big part in the story. In GTA 5, you initially meet them through Trevor, and they're actually led by a man called Ortega, and he actually features in the mission called Mr. Phillips, which is pretty hilarious and actually allows you to ram Mr. Ortega's camper van into the nearby river. And following on from those events, you actually see the Aztecas every now and then. Actually, during the the inevitable rise of Trevor's company, Trevor Phillips Industries. And you may have noticed also that a big part of Trevor's story is pretty much just fighting with all the different gangs in the area, such as the O'Neill brothers, the Aztecas, and the Lost MC, but we'll talk about them more later. The Aztecas are sort of a Mexican cartel style of gang, and they are mostly located in sandy shores and around the areas of the Alamo Sea, very far away from the main city of Los Santos. They actually have specific cars that they like to use, with most of these being muscle cars like the Phoenix as you see here, and sometimes these are even customized in their gang colors, which is usually turquoise. On top of that, the members in this gang usually wear turquoise or teal colored t-shirts, and most of the time the bottom half is just plain jeans, and you might even see some with some white bandanas on, which really sets them apart from the other gangs in this area. Adding on from that, the Aztecas appear in a few small missions, but you'll mostly run into them during the random gang attacks. And you may have noticed too that this is one of the only gangs that actually features older gang members, so it's highly possible the gang has been established for many generations in the lead up to GTA 5. But putting all of that aside, the focus is very much still on the obvious: drugs, guns, and more territory, and the Aztecas are definitely not afraid to go to war to protect that. Next up at number 5, we have the Madrazo Cartel. Unlike most of the gangs mentioned previously, you won't find the Madrazo Cartel members out on the street. You'll likely find them in mansions, golf clubs, and they'll be hidden in plain sight. The Madrazos definitely aren't a low tier street gang, they're more of a crime syndicate within the GTA 5 world. As you may know, this gang or cartel is led by Martin Madrazo, who was introduced unexpectedly during Michael's storyline after that iconic mission where he pulls down that entire apartment in the hills, which in fairness was only fair after the tennis coach shagged his wife. Anyway, after this unfortunate series of events, Michael's essentially forced to do a lot of dirty work for Martin Madrazo in order to sort of repay his debts. And leading on from that, you can clearly see this cartel has a lot of money behind them. Their influence stretches extremely far, way beyond the city of Los Santos and into the Vinewood Hills and even further into the countryside. And this level of influence is clearly apparent in GTA Online. For instance, if you're an OG of GTA 5 Online, then you'll remember vividly the amazing rooftop rumble mission that's actually offered by Martin Madrazo himself. And in addition to that, there's also lots of other missions, usually entailing interrogation or just stealing something from the Madrazos. But in terms of style, the cartel members are actually pretty hard to identify. Most of them usually just wear really smart clothing. The only real identifier is these different coloured polo shirts, all featuring sort of similar colours and designs. And adding on to that, they all drive around in blacked out SUVs or Range Rovers. So in my opinion, they're definitely one of the gangs that you don't want to mess with. But moving on now, let's talk about the O'Neill brothers. Surprisingly, in GTA Online, the O'Neills are actually still around. Even after you wipe them out in the main story, there's still a few missions allowing you to eliminate the rest of the O'Neills that are crawling around, which in a way you could say is pretty cruel. Anyway, the O'Neills are actually based out of that collapsing farmhouse you may have seen in Grapeseed, and a lot of them are seen guarding the perimeter to actually protect the meth lab built in the basement of the farmhouse. And leading on from this, you actually get to explore it during one of GTA 5's best missions titled Crystal Maze. This mission, of course, starts with Trevor interrogating the translator to actually find out who he's working for. Of course, we all know it ends up being the O'Neills, and after a heated phone call,
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!
he runs over there and blows the whole place up. And the last scene in the mission really gives you the cool guys don't look at explosions vibe. Anyway, you could probably tell the O'Neills don't really have any specific attire. They're mostly just scruffy looking hillbillies. But following on from that, let's talk about the small Marabunta Grande cartel, which in fairness don't play a massive role in the story, but they're one of the most interesting in my opinion. The gang's territory is in the east of Los Santos, more specifically in El Burro Heights and also La Mesa as well. This is the only Salvadorian gang, focused again on weapons and drug trafficking, and while you never have a face-to-face encounter with them in the main GTA 5 story, they're actually really interesting because they're inspired by the real-world gang called MS-13. MS-13 originally formed to protect the Salvadorian immigrants from the rival gangs in Los Angeles, and in the real world this slowly developed into a massive criminal organisation. And on top of that, you can clearly see the similarities with the gang members in game. They're all covered in tattoos, and most of them also wear blue coloured shirts, and funnily enough they're actually at war with the Aztecas, the other blue shirt wearers. But now let's talk about their significance in GTA Online. If you still play GTA Online to this day, you might remember the Chop Shop update, which actually brought the Clucking Bell farm heist with it, and during some of these setup missions the Marabunta Grande actually show up, and it's nice to see they've all been updated with new player models and equipment. At least it shows Rockstar haven't forgotten about them since their appearance in one of the best GTA 5 missions. Everyone remembers the GTA 5 mission called Father and Son, but if you don't, let me quickly refresh your memory. It's the one where Jimmy tries to impress Michael by selling off his boat unknowingly to the Marabunta Grande. The Marabunta Grande actually just steals the boat with Jimmy still on board, and I mean, you probably remember the rest of the mission where Franklin has to jump from a moving car onto the boat, and it eventually ends with you getting it back. Next up at number 8, let's talk about the A-Mob that you actually hear about most through Simeon. Yes, I'm talking about Simeon, who in the GTA 5 story mode is mainly responsible for selling and repossessing luxury cars, and most of his shady operations are definitely linked in with the Armenian Mob. In comparison to pretty much every other gang we've talked about so far, the main objective of this gang isn't actually drug related, it's more related to businesses and more fraudulent activities away from the street corner. The Armenian Mob operates out of Rogers Salvage and Scrap in La Puerta, and they're also pretty easy to spot. They mainly wear brown leather jackets, gold chains, and obviously they've got their thick Armenian accents. Just a quick bit of geography if you're interested. Armenia is actually located in Asia right next to Turkey, and it's clear from this GTA 5 screenshot that all men from Armenia look exactly like this. Also, just quickly, if you're getting value from this content, please make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. I'll respond to every single one of them. Anyway, back to the video. As mentioned earlier, the A-Mob aren't your typical gang, and they're mainly just there to protect Simeon. And interestingly enough, during Simeon's random encounter later on in the GTA 5 story, it's actually the last time you ever see him. To give you a brief overview, if you enter into his dealership as either Michael or Franklin later on in the story, Simeon will actually treat you as hostile, and two of the Armenian Mob members will actually try and protect him. And this is the only real proof we have that Simeon is working with the A-Mob. But leading on from that, the A-Mob is pretty non-existent in GTA Online, apart from being listed as one of the potential buyers during the Diamond Casino heist, which personally I think is still one of the best updates in GTA Online to this day. But moving on now, let's talk about the next gang, and that's the K-Mob, which is pretty similar to the Armenian Mob in terms of their importance in the GTA 5 story. The Korean Mob, also known as the Kung Pei, definitely butchered that, but it's supposed to be Korean for thug, and this tight-knit K-Mob are usually located in Ginger Street out in Little Seoul, but they also occasionally show up in Blaine County alongside the O'Neill brothers. They're a relatively small but dangerous South Korean crime group, with the members involved ranging from young to elderly gangsters similar to the Aztecas, and they are usually armed with pistols and knives. As mentioned earlier, they don't play a major role in the GTA 5 storyline, but they can sometimes be seen attacking the hen house business all the way out in Palito Bay. And adding on to that, from what I've read, it seems they run most of their operations through nightclubs and different front businesses. But that's about it from the K-Mob, who are often confused with the Triads, but these are actually a Chinese crime syndicate and they're not Korean, and they're also formerly known as the Wei Cheng Triad after their boss. In GTA 5, they run directly out of Los Santos, using the Raven Slaughterhouse as their most notorious front. But although this is interesting to explore, this is only one of the many fronts that the Triads have, clearly showing that they're a very organised and well-financed group. For example, in GTA Online, they're the entire reason behind the Diamond Casino heist. The Triads initially owned the Diamond Casino and Resort before it was taken over by the Duggans, who are actually a pretty corrupt oil family all the way from Texas. In response to this, Georgina Cheng hires Lester to organise the Diamond Casino heist, and I almost forgot that Georgina Cheng is actually the daughter of the Triad's boss. Let's talk a bit more about him now. In the GTA 5 story mode, Mr. Wei Cheng is actually featured in the final mission. If you were sane and chose the Death Wish ending or option C, then you actually have to take out the Triad's boss as Franklin outside the Pacific Country Club. And one more thing just before we move on, the Triads organisation has actually been in a lot of GTA games in the past, such as GTA 3, GTA San Andreas, and even GTA 4, and obviously GTA 5 as well. But last and not least, let me explain the final gang, the Lost MC. The Lost MC, or the Lost Motorcycle Club, originally was in Liberty City in GTA 4, but during the events of 2013 in GTA 5, they actually expanded into Blaine County and Los Santos too. And leading on from that, they mainly run their operations out of Grapeseed and a place called Stab City. But it seems they're pretty much all over the map, rocking their distinct motorcycle jackets. And unfortunately for the Lost Lost MC. Their leader, Johnny Klabitz, is murdered by Trevor in the early stages of GTA 5, which ultimately sparks a gang war and leads to Trevor taking all of them out. Compare this to GTA Online and the bikers are quite a common sight. As with the other gangs, they show up in a few missions and some of the gang attacks on your businesses too. Obviously here I'm referring to the MC businesses, which I'd say most people own or buy as their first businesses in GTA Online. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know if I missed anything and I'll see you in the next one.